our conversation this week. We want you guys to start jumping in those comments. Don't wait. Go ahead and put your name and where you're from. Say, like for me, it would be, hi, I'm Dr. Monica Rippey from Virginia Beach, Virginia. We want to hear from you guys. Like, share, tag some friends. But like I said, my name is Dr. Monica Rippey. I'm a nurse first. I'm the executive at Ascend Wellness Services, and I am also a wellness coach.
Hi, I'm Andrea Josephs. I am a licensed counselor, and I'm also the mom of five. So I'm a princess producer, and I'm the clinical mental health director at Ascend Wellness Services.
My name is Carrie Josephs. I'm 17. I am in this transition between high school and college, and I plan on being a psych major.
Awesome. We were so excited to have you guys join us last week. We had a good time.
That's good.
We sat and we introduced the 8 domains of wellness, which we are going to be tackling over the next year. So we're going to break down those domains. We're really going to get into what those domains mean. We're going to define them, and then we're going to give you guys tips throughout the year on how to be healthier youth. And so what that looks like for everybody may be different. So we want you to share your personal takes down in the comments when you can. So this week, what we're specifically talking about is the domain of physical wellness. So like we said earlier, there's 8 domains. We're going to start this month out by just breaking down physical health, talking about what that means. So we added the definition here of physical wellness, and we're going to click over on it. We've got this beautiful screen over here, and so we can see you guys when you comment. So go ahead and put some comments in. But we're going to click over here, and we're going to read off the definition for you guys so that you guys know exactly what we're talking about. So physical wellness promotes proper care of our bodies for optimal health and functioning. Overall, this domain encourages the balance of physical activity, nutrition, and mental well-being to keep your body in top condition. So what I'm going to ask you guys right now is I want you guys to start discussing what it meant for you guys to be physically well. Like in your life, how have you committed to trying to be healthier physically?
Physical wellness for me is a journey. I have to say that to begin with. When I looked at our layout for Wellness Wednesday, I was like, we talked about at earlier Wellness Wednesdays that everybody has a theme. And so when I looked out at the layout for what we were going to introduce in J, I was like, we're starting on my thing. Physical wellness is my thing. But it's a journey for me. And I think it's a journey for a lot of people. And so there's starts and there's stops, not because of lack of motivation, not because of lack of willingness to do it, but life happens.
Yeah.
And we have shifts and movements in life. Last week we talked about vertical stressors. So cancer treatment was that vertical stressor for me. So it just kind of changed the way, that my physical wellness was going. I thought about it earlier today, and I thought about, you never want to feel like you're making excuses or anything like that. There are so many people that it's not an excuse. It's like doing treatment, they kind of pumped me full of steroids for my chemo and stuff like that. So it just changes the way your body functions. So I am bouncing back off of that. So for me now, physical wellness means just staying on the journey, dealing with the life interruptions as they come, and just making the adjustments that I need to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. How about you? I can say that my mom's journey was definitely a hard one. Not even mentioning cancer. It's just like it's always been something that she's tried to strive at having good physical wellness. For me though, I tend to stress eat a lot, and so when I was younger, this wasn't really a problem. But as I get older, my metabolism is starting to slow down, and so it's starting to catch up with me a little bit. And that's not so much a problem for me because I don't really mind it. But it's the part of it where it's like I have a hard time dieting or practicing good health, and I have a hard time trying to maintain physical activity, as well as like when I don't do those things, I kind of beat myself up about it a little bit. I said, like those we talking about, set those goals and things and they don't work out exactly the way you plan for them to. So that's just something I try to work on is stress eating and stuff like that. But it's mostly a mental thing for me as we look at it. I think there's, physical wellness is not just your weight. It's what you eat and how you're thinking, and like that it directly affects your mental well-being.
Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. I think when we're looking at this definition that we were talking about, two of the words that really stood out to us as we were discussing it in our private conversations was the word balance, number one, balance of these three things, and also the word top condition. Can you tell me let's break them down independently. Can you talk to me about what it means to be in top condition?
Oh, well, I think that
That's a hard question.
that's
isn't
a
it? It's so
hard one. That's a hard one because, again, I think top condition is just like any other area of wellness or any other dimension. I think it is very individualized
Yeah.
to who we are. And Karis was just talking about putting pressure, on yourself or feeling, kind of overwhelmed. Maybe that's not the word that you use, but that's how kind of how it felt. I don't want to put pressure on myself to be in top condition because my top condition, pre-cancer treatment and healing, is different than my top condition now.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's totally different. So top condition means we talked about sustainable
Yes.
last week. So I am in top condition with my water. We talked about that. We talked about me choosing one thing and mastering that one thing. And so I am back on my 60 to 80 something ounces of water. So I'm back at that. So I'm in top condition when it comes to my water. So top condition means what am I working on now and how consistent I am with it. Hi, Christy. I just saw you come in. Hi, Miss Christy. Oh, hi, Mom. My mom is here. I'll be on my best behavior, I promise.
Hey, and I love that you say that when you're comparing yourself, because I think I'm a athlete. I used to be an athlete. I was a competitive gymnast for basically the whole beginning of my life, my younger years. And so my whole life was dedicated to competing, to being physically fit, to exercising, to pushing myself and my body to new limits week after week. And now I find myself getting closer and closer to 30. I'm in the millennial realm. I'm close and closer to 30, and I am finding myself not being always satisfied with where I'm at physically because I used to be more fit. And so I find myself comparing my top condition now as a person that just had a baby 4 months ago to my top condition at 15 or 16. And it's not apples and apples. Like I had to come to the revelation and be comfortable with the idea that after having a baby, I was going to lose my weight that I wanted to lose in an appropriate way and in a safe way, in a balanced way. And I had to redefine what my top condition was. So what is my mom bod? What is that going to look like now? What is mom? My family, they call me Monica because my name is Monica and I'm a mom now.
Yeah.
So what is my Monica body? What is my Dr. Monica body? And so for me, when you're talking about your mental well-being, a hard thing for me is not beating myself up when I miss that walk or I miss that water or I was doing so good on my diet and somebody brought donuts to the nurse's station and now I'm eating donuts, or when I fall off the rails, or if I'm overdoing it. And so top condition I think can look different for us with our life changes and with aging, but I also think top condition can look different from us relationally. So we talked about your support network last week also, and as Chloe, my sister Chloe, calls them accountability buddies, who your accountability partners are in your wellness journey. And sometimes if me and Karis go out to set out a goal to be physically well, we may be in different stages of that wellness and we may have different goals. And so not comparing our stages to each other. Her top condition is different than my top condition. Does that make sense?
It makes totally good sense. And I was thinking about, we were talking about it earlier. And when you think about top condition, I had this thought. I said, I don't want anybody on Wellness Wednesday, because you have people that hit the ground running. They haven't had the life interruptions where this month, this week is just an overview of what we're going to do this month. So we'll break it down and get more specific as the month goes along with the to-dos and how-tos. But for those people, if you are physically fit and you are like hot bodied, for less than of a better phrase, You have done your what's that beach body videos, and you are just got it all together. That's great. So
Yeah.
it's not that we don't want to get to that point where everything is firing on all cylinders. I think because of the work that you do in the medical community, as far as the nursing realm and medical realm, and the work that I do in the counseling realm, we understand that sometimes there are people that cannot hit that optimal stride for whatever reason off the bat. I sit with people that have had heart conditions and different things, and they're just trying to get it back into the swing of life. So we just want to give a space and give encouragement because we don't want people to stop.
Yeah.
And we don't. So if you showed up in 2021 and you say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop drinking sodas. And that is all you said you were going to do. And you have done it. If you're in a season with a group of people and you say like, okay, we're going to come off of social media some.
Right.
Well, I found out I did come off of social media some, and I do have time to focus on other things and walk and, do other things, come off of caffeine. So I really want to preference that it is a spectrum.
Yeah.
Wellness is a spectrum. So you may be in any place on that spectrum. And I was saying to them on yesterday we have like a Tuesday chat
Yeah.
that we have to get prepared for Wellness Wednesday talks. And so I was saying to them, we don't want to discount the person on this end of the spectrum that is fit, no excuses, let's go. And we don't want to discount the person over here that is like, I had a knee replacement, or I'm trying to get back in the pace of life. They have barriers. So this person over here, don't leave us because we're all not there. Please stay with us. Because you know why? You can be somebody like my daughter Chloe said, accountability buddy. My accountability buddy is here. One of them. Saida's here. Two of them's here. Two of them are here. Saeed is here. Christy Meredith is here. These are the people I have been saying to Saida, I want to work out. So send me the schedule. What is my barrier?
Right.
What is my barrier?
What's keeping you? What we mean by that is what is keeping you from being in that top condition?
Yeah.
And Karis, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, actually, as you guys were saying, all the things you were saying were really bad. I was just having some thoughts, and I lost a couple of them. But I just think that it all comes back to that sustainability piece.
Yes.
And you can't look at that person on the other side of the spectrum and say, well, they're doing so good. How's it so good for them? You have to do what is good for you. Cutting back those sodas, maybe you can do that. And and that's what's good for you. And like she was saying, like what I can do in my physical wellness and what she can do in physical wellness may not be right there on the same length, but it's sustainable for both of us.
Yeah.
And that's what's that word you use? It's the
Resilience?
no. It's
Or
what's
I don't know.
but like that's where we're supposed to be in our developmental stages of life. And so
Optimal?
and so just I was thinking about that. I think that you were saying just yesterday how everything is so against aging, and how they were saying like there's all these aging creams and everybody wants to look younger, but like to be fair, aging is a beautiful process. It's beautiful. I find it beautiful.
Says the 17.
It's like you can't beat yourself up because you're not 17 anymore. You can't beat yourself up because you're not that athlete anymore.
Yeah, that was the point of that conversation. We were talking about how, when I was saying earlier, what is sustainable for me, exercise and nutrition-wise at 30 is a lot different than 15. My metabolism isn't the same. I just had a baby. I work more. I have a lot going on, so it's hard. I'm tired after work. I wasn't tired after work when I had no job at 15. So your dynamics change as you age, and there's a beauty in that. And I think a lot of times in our culture we get very shameful with that.
Yeah.
We'll get disappointed in ourselves when you go to the gym and you're like, I wish I could do what that person was doing. Or you see somebody online and they're doing their green drinks and you're like, I really just want to do a donut. Yeah, and I think when we were talking about the aging factor, I think as we age, we have to redefine what our top condition is. We have to redefine what balance looks like. We have to redefine what's sustainable. And then we also, no matter what age we are, you had brought up the word resilient earlier, and we had been talking about resilience. And as we talk about every stage this year, every domain, we're going to bring up that buzzer word, sustainability. You're going to hear that all year long. But every single domain, we're going to have other little words that you'll hear quite often. So this month, you're going to hear a lot about resilience. And I want you to talk about really quick what it means to you to be resilient.
We looked up the word resilient, and it talked about bouncing back.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. Buoyancy,
Yes.
but it also talked about finding balance. The word balance came up again when it came to your wellness.
Yeah.
And when it came to your
And adversity. It talked about
adversity, being able to. So when I thought about resilience, I looked at that, and I looked at it from your perspective, because sometimes we're from different disciplines.
Yeah.
So I have to find a way for the discipline, the medical model and the psychological model to meet. And so I was like, you really got it. You started talking about it. I was like, oh, how does this fit in? And it went back to me on what anchors you. We talked about that earlier on. Different things anchor different people different ways.
Yeah.
And so if I can just be transparent and say my faith anchors me. So resilience, sometimes my resilience comes from a place beyond. When I did that 13.1 marathon, and I talked about last week how you had to come and drag me over that last 1/10 of a mile, is because I had come to the end of myself.
Right.
But when you came and you began to talk to me, all of the inner part of me kind of woke up. And I'm like, okay, I'm at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So that in psychological realms is what we call self-efficacy.
Mm-hmm.
So you can make a plan.
Right.
You can pick a thing to be sustainable in, but then you don't want to forget that inner part of you that fights.
Yes.
The part of you that will fight, or the part of you that you connect to what anchors you and it fights for you.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So that's what
That's what I'll say too. I think coming off of 2020, we talked a couple weeks back. You guys can check out this video, one of our first videos. We were talking specifically about COVID and the new year and holidays.
Yeah.
And we had touched on in there about in 2021, when you're deciding what you want to think about this year, making sure you're grabbing onto hope.
Yes.
That you're grabbing onto, dreaming, that you're having vision for this year.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're creating those sustainable goals, you have this vision in mind. When we're talking about top condition too, you have a vision in mind of who you should look like, or what you should look like, right? Or how you should be. And so when you're thinking of that vision, when I'm thinking of resiliency on the same token that you were saying, I think a lot about making sure that when I fall short of that vision that I created, that I grab onto hope, I bounce back, and I recommit to whatever the sustainable changes I was going to make.
That's so good.
And I think it's something about recommitting. When you talk about resilience, it's something about getting back up the next day and saying, well, yesterday, that didn't go how I thought it was going to go, but today's a new day. And I can get up and rise up to the occasion that I set for myself.
Based on, I had two thoughts in my head based on what you were saying, because I'm a person that I like to have something stuck in my head, like that I can repeat or that I can meditate on.
Right.
And one thing I heard was hope. Hope. There's a actually it's a scripture. It's a biblical scripture that says, "Hope deferred makes the heart sick."
Yeah.
So when you fall short of what you've kind of put out there, that's why we said we wanted the goals to be realistic.
Right.
So when you fall short of it, you don't lose hope or lose heart.
Yeah.
Some people say, and then you talked about comparing your mamaka body with your gym body, your gymnastics body. And I've always said to my girls, because I had 5 girls, there were 6 women in my house at one time. The Lord was with us, and we went in peace sometimes. So I would say comparison is what?
The thief of joy.
The thief of joy.
Come on.
Do not compare yourself with your younger self. And I think we did well with that with each other. I'm not going to compare my curl pattern with Kara's. I'm not going to compare my
I think I did well with other people.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be like, I'm not going to compare myself to Karis because Karis is the only Karis. You know what I mean? And I'm the only Monica, so we can't be the same.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I had a hard time with doing it to myself.
Yeah.
As I begin to age, I really did have a hard time not comparing my new self to what I used to be.
Yeah.
And it was very,
What you wanted
or
to
what
be.
I wanted to be, or sometimes what I wanted to be wasn't realistic. I had to have like a moment with myself a little bit ago where I was like, when I was in gymnastics, I was working out sometimes 30 hours a week, sometimes 40 hours a week. I cannot do that with a full-time job. So the expectations I was putting on myself were not realistic.
Right.
But then I was like beating myself up,
Yeah.
you know, and crying about it. And my husband, his name's Ethan. I'll probably talk about him a lot on here. I love you, Ethan.
Yeah.
But love you, baby. Love you. He's probably gonna be so embarrassed. I'll never do that again. But he would be sitting on the couch and he'd be like, Monica, now you know you've only been to the gym one time this year for 15 minutes.
Right.
Why do you think that you're gonna have a six-pack?
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I had to start to learn to be content in where I was, but also resilient enough to keep trying, keep hoping, and keep pushing for the nutrition that I wanted, for the health that I wanted, for the life that I wanted, even out of physical health. But I think that segues us, because remember our definition talks about physical activity, nutrition, which we've talked about a ton here, but it also talks about how your mental well-being is affected by your physical health.
Yes.
You're our counselor at the table.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about how not being physically well can negatively impact our mental well-being?
Absolutely. And vice versa.
And vice versa.
We have something we call somatic symptoms. So I can feel if you didn't let go of that past you and you didn't let go, when you house certain stuff, it's going to show up
Right.
in your physical body. I was talking to somebody, and because I do a lot of work in the area of just like holistic wellness, right? And I was talking to somebody and said, listen, when you live a crisis-prone life, like crisis happens. We talked about those vertical stressors. Listen, if you're going to, this is real talk for real people, right? If you go through a divorce and then 6 months later, you know, you have a pet to pet, and then a little bit, that COVID was crisis prone. I know we're moving away from it, but just to use it for example, because it's really not our foundation. We're moving, you know, on with that, through that. But when you live, your body gives out a lot of cortisol.
Yeah.
And that is that fight, flight, freeze response. And so what I'm saying to my body, I'm not walking, I'm not, you know, connecting to people like my accountability buddies and my, you know, I'm not connecting with them. I'm not letting them infuse me with hope when I can't even do it myself.
Yeah.
So I'm not putting out any good serotonin. This is physiological stuff.
Right.
So you can even speak to that.
Right.
So I can remember a time when I was, when my body was healthy and we're getting back more healthy. It's healthy. More healthy, and I would train for the half marathons. I would get to a place, they got something they call a runner's high. I would know when I would get in that stride.
Those endorphins start
Those
pumping.
endorphins would get the pumping up. So it is really your physical well-being, your mental well-being, emotional well-being. You cannot separate from the body.
And I can speak on that real quick from the opposite end of that as a nurse, because sometimes I would come in a room and somebody would call on the nurse's station, they'd call the nurse station and say, I can't breathe. So, you know, I'm running down, I can't breathe, you know, but they're talking to me, so I'm like, okay, we kind of can breathe because you're talking. But, sorry, that's my nurse mind. But a lot of times you would go down there, you would do your assessment, listen to their lungs, you check their oxygen, and then you'd be like, well, you're breathing well, your oxygenation is well, but there's, I can't breathe. And so then you break it down and you say, you can breathe, but you're anxious. And they say, I'm not anxious.
Right.
I'm not anxious. But they're having a physical effect
Right, so mad.
to where their mind is going.
Yeah.
And so you can see in those moments how it is connected. How sometimes where we are in our minds, where we're battling in our minds, or where we're battling in our physical body can negatively impact the other space.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
It's just like an extra little tidbit that I was thinking of. I took this human development class at my university, and I actually had to write part of my paper at the end of the class about how physical wellness can affect your mental well-being, and especially in men, how it just affects the way you feel about yourself. So just to relate it to myself, sometimes when I do watch those, those nutrition videos and I feel a little down, I do watch those, see those girls working out every day in the gym, always, just doing that work, and I'm like, well, and then I look at myself and I'm like, well, dang, and it makes me feel insecure, and that directly negatively affects the way that I see myself, and that can impact other things that aren't just about my physical wellness, but because of my physical wellness, it's sort of this like domino chain effect of the way that I think about myself.
Right.
And so that's why, when I was taking that class, I would have never even thought about the fact that physical wellness could affect somebody's well-being. And then as I was thinking about it, it was like, it makes so much sense of why people feel the way that they do about themselves, and that causes them to not feel motivated. If you have negative thoughts about yourself, then you're going to be like, well, I can't do it anyway.
Then you're on this wheel.
And then it just keeps going. So you see this, you're like, I'm going to do it, and then you do that thing where you set those goals way too high, and then it's just that cycle of being like, well, then I didn't do it, and now I'm a failure. And
I love that you brought those men in the conversation, because this conversation is for you too. It's for you. Wink, wink. You guys can do this too, and so we've got to be careful about that. We've got to encourage each other.
Yeah.
We've got to be each other's encouragements. But let's get into it. So last week we had a little moment where Karis had a really good idea, and I called it Karis Tips. And somebody had ended up commenting and saying something to me in our DM saying that they really liked Karis Tips. So we were like, we're going to give it to the people. We're going to give you what you want. And so what you want is Karis Tips, right? So Karis, we've got about 4 minutes or so left. We want you to give us your tips for the week. What are the top Karis tips?
All right, y'all. I've got 3 things for you, okay? So here are my 3 pointers. First is identify your barriers. And then I'll explain after. But 2, you're going to explore sustainability. And 3, practice resilience. So first thing you want to do is make sure that you're seeing, okay, what is keeping me from achieving my goal? What are those things that I'm saying to myself? What are those things like work, things like that are keeping me away from doing things that I need to do? And then you want to explore sustainability. Now, considering your barriers, what is something that is easily achievable for you to do? What is something that is realistic for you to do? What is sustainable? Like as we've been talking about last week, what is that thing? And while considering those barriers, which is what's making it sustainable, right? And then we're going to practice that resilience, saying like, when you mess up, that's okay. Get back up again and start again tomorrow. Absolutely. And when you forget your water that hour, that's okay. Go pick up one now. Like, don't give up on yourself. And buoyancy, bounce back afterwards, and be forgiving towards yourself.
Absolutely.
So
that's our Karis tip.
That's our Karis
tip.
tips.
To elaborate, let's talk a couple minutes about her tips.
Yeah.
Okay, let's break it down because we've got a little bit of extra time.
Can I jump in on that?
Yes.
She brought in something totally over the table. Of course, at the last minute, we went out of time. We'll bring it next week. But she said, forgive yourself.
Yes.
Forgive.
We have to talk about
yourself.
That's a whole segment to itself.
Right.
That's a whole segment.
We don't have a lot of time right now. But nod to Adriana for telling us, look, put your tips in there. Yeah, because we have to remind ourselves. Forgive myself. So I just want to say I forgive myself in my physical wellness for being so hard on myself in time management. I have one of the other counselors in our office or therapists. I was talking to her, and when we turn our head to the side, that says something. And she did the head turn. I said, oh my goodness, she did the head turn for me. And because I said, I just don't have time. I wish I made the time. And I said, I need 1 more hour in the day. So how about a 28-hour day? That would work out. And she turned her head to the side. She said, man, she said, because you would fill that hour with something else. And she said, just quickly, in her nice little sweet voice, she said, how about some work-life balance? So that is what is right now at this particular time. That is my personal barrier to getting out and doing what I need to do. And Saida is here. Saida, I promise. Can I promise? Yes, I can promise. That I am going to endeavor, see, it's all in the wording. I am going to endeavor to get on that Monday workout. I have been working out with Saida in my mind for a month.
So let's break down Karis tips. Run an example real quick.
I think this could go with literally everything. And as we look at our definition of physical wellness, again, it applies to what our physical
Physical
activity, our nutrition, as well as our mental well-being.
Okay.
So literally, you could take any three of these, wherever you fit on the spectrum, and you could fit it within that. And we were practicing this like yesterday, and I literally said, okay, so physical activity. I don't work out because I don't have the motivation. That's my barrier. In order to have the motivation or to prop myself to do these sort of things, I also have probably 10 minutes. My mother's daughter. And I can
Get another
It's a family
It's a family
trait.
trait. And so I can set up times, I can do those alarms, whatever I need to do, and that's how I can figure out something that I can do to give myself motivation in that time management sort of thing, because that's how I beat myself up. And then I practice resilience when I wake up one day and, I'm like, I do not feel like doing that morning walk. I don't feel like doing that Wednesday walk. I can forgive myself later because I know later I'm going to be like, well, dang, I should have done that.
Did you know what? We didn't talk about the forgiveness. We're going to do this real quick. We're sorry. We know we're holding y'all. But this is a good thought. We didn't talk about this yesterday, but that forgiveness piece, when you just said, when I wake up, let me tell you how many times I've woken up, looked at that alarm and said, the devil is a lie.
Right.
Like,
That's what I was thinking about when I said that.
Sorry. But there's times that you get up and you're exhausted from the day. Like, I'm a new mom, and I get exhausted from momming. I do. And I'll wake up, and I'm supposed to go walk, and I'll look at that clock, and I'll be like, the baby is still sleeping. And my husband is sleeping. And the house is quiet.
My dog is in bar.
And my dog is not acting the fool, which is rare, y'all. Pray for my dog. My dog is not acting the fool. So when I look at that clock, something you said is forgiving yourself. It is okay for me to look at that clock and say not today for my mental well-being, because we added mental well-being in there.
Because I know
Because what's on the other side of that spectrum is sometimes people push themselves too hard. And we haven't talked about those people, the people that are obsessively at the gym, obsessively dieting, But we can forgive ourselves and give ourselves the opportunity to be balanced.
I want to give a nod out there too, because sometimes stuff can be too much.
Right.
And that is where we'll get off into your eating disorders,
Yeah.
your different things like that. When you talk about nutrition, you talk about physical wellness. I was so shocked to see physical wellness and well-being pair, because we always see just the outside. So just being careful that we don't get obsessive, because in my practice, that's where I see like my eating disorders and my other things. And that, when I tell you that person, and men aren't exempt, guys, you're not exempt. We were at a conference and someone brought across the word manorexia. I was like, what is that? What manner? What are you trying to have a cute play on anorexia? They're like, no, we're trying to bring awareness to the fact that men struggle in the area of eating also, even as they age. And I was talking to a gentleman, and we were kind of throwing things back and forth, and I was trying to give him some tips on how functional fitness right now. Hey, comparison is a thief for joy. I am not Karis that could work out regularly. This is a nod to her. Her motivation, and just choose not to get up. I can't. There are certain things that I cannot do because of doctor's orders or whatever.
Right.
And so I went into functional fitness. I discovered functional fitness. So I was saying to that person, I said, you want some function? She said, I don't know how to get functional fitness. Well, for me, it's January, and I started spring cleaning like it was April the other day.
Turn your Fitbit on.
Turn your
Fitbit
on. Yes. I burned 1,600 calories just moving around my house on Saturday. By the time I finished, it was almost 3 hours. And I had just moved around doing like normal stuff. So he said, well, I don't clean the house. I said, well, where's your honey-do list? I said, that'll be a win-win-win. You'll get moving. You'll be able to do that. Your wife will be happy. And you'll be able to do that. So we want to join this journey all together. And we may be, girls. This is a girl pocket. But it's not only girl talk, We are fully aware that we have young men and older men and all ages and all spectrums. And that's why we try to be representative of all age groups across the lifespan. Everybody.
You've got a body, it affects you.
Right.
That's it. Like, if you have head, shoulders, knees, and toes, this is for you. So we're going to wrap it up this week. That was a really good talk. We're so happy for those of you who could join us live. But if you're watching it over. We're so excited that you got to hear it too. We want you to still keep tagging, still keep sharing and liking the video. But what we were going to do is let you know, Miss Mimi, your book is coming. It's coming in the mail. So if you see this, your book is headed down to you from last week. For the next couple of weeks, what we're going to do is break down this a little bit more. So today we defined it for you. Next week, we're going to break down that physical activity, and then we're going to follow up nutrition with the next week, and we're going to end January talking about that mental well-being, giving you guys more helpful tips. But we love you guys. Have a great week. You're almost to the weekend, and ascend well.
Ascend well. And we believe in everything well and optimal for you and us.
Yeah, absolutely. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Miss Aida.
Bye, Miss Christy.
Bye, Mommy.